Okay, so we are talking about a very important issue of the $5 trillion economy. And what is the role that deep tech can play as far as this economy is concerned? So let me, and I've got a very distinguished panel with me here. I have Mr. Ashank Desai, the founder of Mastek. And besides Mastek, he has been the founder of a number of different organizations, NASSCOM and PAN IIT and so on. And so, he would be the right person to sort of talk about the future as far as the $5 trillion economy is concerned. Our chief guest today, Mr. CP Gurnani, needs no introduction. He has taken Tech Mahindra to absolutely new heights in terms of the value that it has created, and starting from a very difficult time when the Satyam absorption happened, and you were part and parcel of ensuring that entire integration took place, and the company has moved on from those time onwards onto a completely different kind of a trajectory. So let me start with you, Ashank, first. We are talking about this $5 trillion economy. We also are talking about a lot of high tech. You have all these buzzwords. You have blockchain, and you have 5G, and AR, and VR, and AI, and ML. So, would like to ask you, how exactly do you see these technologies playing a role in terms of the economic growth? Earlier it was very simple. You said that, if there is better communication, if there is more connectivity, then you will automatically find, there were international studies which said that X growth in telecom meant 2X growth in economy. How are these technologies going to play?
So thanks, PG. It is great to be here on the 29th occasion of your award ceremony. So it goes like this. You see, in this 5 trillion economy that we are talking, IT industry's role, has been computed, that role actually, which happens to be 1 trillion. So we are effectively saying that 20% of role, if you just take numbers, it will be played by IT industry at a very high level. Now what is this 1 trillion? Because that will answer your question partly. There is a part of business which all of us, IT industry, CP and me and all others, are playing part by doing business, exports, domestic market. So we are serving our customers and generating business. So that is close to 400 or plus billion. And remaining, which is the real power that you are talking about, is to improve the economy itself through the deep technologies by impacting all the sectors of economy. So that is where the remaining part comes. 4 to 500 is us, remaining is coming from. And that includes e-commerce, that includes many other things. So the point that is being made is that deep technology will do two things. It will allow Indian IT companies to do much larger business globally, which is an opportunity which is waiting for all of us. And we have been doing it for the last 40 years as an industry. This is a much larger opportunity as you see it, and the growth rate and the kind of things that are happening, without getting into the details. But coming back to India, we have not used technology as much as what we should be using, and that is changing very fast. Today, as you know, the electronic e-commerce transactions, India is number one in terms of monetary transactions. UPI has happened, India Stack has happened. So some of these innovations will use deep technologies, and these platforms and the India Stack and things like that. And now we are talking of D&D, right? What is it called? Distribution. whole thing that we are doing. I'm sorry, I forget the name.
ONDC.
ONDC. So some of these are the impactful economic platforms or impactful economic activities which will use deep technologies to make much more higher impact, to make much more higher speed impact. So that is where the deep technology comes. Today, some of these things that we are talking, we could not have done without deep technology. And it is deep technology here as another dimension, PG. What's happening is, we have all lived 40 years technology change. We have all seen going from Algol or COBOL to where we are from client server and so on. But as I see it, multiple technologies becoming mature and impacting simultaneously has not happened. And we know all the names, AIML to IoT to, you can take 10 names. But all of them together have catapulted into something, which is kind of an oven where everything is melting pot. So that's why this deep tech opportunity becomes still more important. It is not about deep issue. It is also the scope issue.
The scope. Yeah. So, CP, Ashank says that the impact will not just come out of exports, but the big chunk has to come out of our domestic business itself. And UPI is an example. So what do you think we should do in terms of the India stack, or of course we have the payment stack, now the health stack and so on. So what is it that we should be focusing on to ensure that the benefits of these technologies start coming into the common man of India?
Thank you, PG. At least I can only tell you that the first time I attended, that's 29 years ago, first time I came here, we used to discuss crores. Then I came here, you started talking millions. Then I came here, you discussed billion. Now you started talking trillion. I don't know after that what happens. So again, following up on what Ashank said, so let's first take why IT and communication is now merged into one. It's not only Government of India making one minister. The reality is that the convergence of communication and IT and now businesses is for real.
Right.
Now we can debate whether online pharmacy or an online health or an online education or an online gaming is the right way to go or not. But the reality is that it is now online software industry. So clearly online does not work if there is no communication. And if communication does not work, if there is no connected solution. So for India to take that leap, we can't be 2 years behind in implementing 5G. We can't be not having a clear policy of a campus network on 5G. I mean, we are still debating when will we have the auction, number two, and what will be the policy for private campuses and private networks. I think this is something which we need to fully understand, that in this connected world, communication and software, communication and business, software and business are all interlinked. You cannot run your media empire without a connected solution, nor can Ashank run his multiple businesses without the connected solution. The second part, I think this is, I still remember Raji Pawar many years ago when he set up NIIT, he said, and that time it was hardware industry. That time he said, you guys in HCL will sell computers, but you need to have computer operators. You need to have technicians, and it is like selling cars without knowing driving. I don't know, Raji, what was the exact statement, But I will still repeat, this is true for that $5 trillion dream or a $1 trillion dream. That you cannot have that dream without having the skills. I still remember one of those NASSCOM PwC reports said world would need 3.5 million or 4 million cybersecurity experts. Now the question is, has academia followed it up? Is academia generating those few 100,000 or million cybersecurity experts? And because the need hasn't gone away, particularly after the Ukraine-Russia war, the reality is that the threat of cyber has only enhanced. And I'm not trying to put that as problem statements. I'm actually trying to re-emphasize connectivity is an opportunity, people, cybersecurity is an opportunity, and when you start adding up the people skills required, and if we start looking at how the pillars of the society, which is the academia, which is the industry, which is the government, if they can work together, I think we are in a brilliant situation. We have an opportunity, and if this opportunity may be coming in because of the repolarization of the world right now happening. I mean, it could be a Russia-China, it could be China versus whoever, India in a unique position, a friend to every country, and at the same time, when Sri Lanka is not able to export, I'm assuming India can export. So there is an opportunity all over, whether it is in technology, whether it's in people, whether it is in academia. I think we need to get our heads together and make it happen.
Okay, so the point you're making is that you talked about the hardware, you talked about the network, you talked about the application on top of that, a sort of full framework which is required, and of course the skills required to ensure that, once that kind of a thing is there, it works. And you also talked about the need for quick decision making. All right. Now, today the good thing is that we have a government which on economic matters listens, right? And there is a lot of policies which come with the dialogues between the industry as well as the government. Now, Ashank, you are one of the co-founders of NASSCOM. That, of course, was interaction with a different type of government where it was not really, in a listening mode with the industry, but more of a control mode with the industry. What were some of your experiences and how those experiences can today apply in this $5 trillion goal?
Experiences in the early days of
early days of how you work collaboratively with the government and how we can work collaboratively today. Are there lessons to be learned from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If I repeat those days 40 years ago, not 40 actually, NASSCOM started in 1988. Our exports, as CP said, was in crores, $50 million. Okay, that was the total exports. I think CP does this, I don't know in how many hours every day, but that was the India's export, and we are here 200 billion, so 4,000 crores. How did that happen? There is a learning lesson for the whole world to look at it, and obviously we as an NASSCOM played a great role. So what did happen in those early days, which was a catalyst, if you ask me that question? So the catalyst were three things actually, three very, very important things. On one hand, we had the group of all of us in IT industry who had a passion to see what is coming up. We all lived a dream. We lived a dream that we will make a difference globally. But that dream was owned by a new class of entrepreneurs, new class of professionals who were there. They were just arising. You remember this, there was nothing called software house in 1979-80. It used to call systems house, actually. At IIM Ahmedabad, when I took our first step. We went and met DOE. Just we wanted to start IT industry, a software company. He said, what is this? You mean systems house? And that time hardware guys used to give software free. Now it is other way. But the point I'm making is, there was a group of professionals like all of us. Number two, we were lucky to have a bureaucracy and some bureaucracy leaders like Mr. Vittal, who came from an upbringing. We used to always tell him, he was brought up in Gujarat. He's a Gujarat cadre. So we used to tell him, sir, you are like a Gujarati baniya all the time. And he was exactly a baniya. So that was the second factor, which was very important. The third factor was, there were, although they didn't play directly in an academic role, but there were some respected academic leaders also, who were heard by the government and who were heard by the bureaucrats and so on and so forth. So I think there was this mixture of all of this together which made a difference. And NASSCOM obviously played a great role in bringing all of this together and committing to Mr. Vittal that Mr. Vittal went and committed $400 million to Prime Minister then, Mr. Manmohan Singh, without asking us. And we said, sir, how are we going to do it? We are 100 million. He says, no, if you want many things, you must commit some numbers. And so on. So there was that enthusiasm to make things happen. So government in a way was there, who was willing to listen to us in terms of support, and particularly driven at a ground level. You know how this software technology park happened? Do you know the story? It is NASSCOM and government created together, which was a cutting innovation of the kind. And hence, so I was talking about government, and you entered at right time. I said how government and NASSCOM were catalysts together in those early days. I was explaining into PG. If that was not there, that set of bureaucrats, that set of people around us who were willing to listen to us and willing to give us a freedom, because the idea of bureaucracy for other ministry, other businesses was different, whereas what we came across was completely different. And that, to a way, we were lucky, you can say, but that was a fact. So the learning lesson today is that continue that same thing, where we get new bureaucrats and young bureaucrats like Mr. Sawhney and many others who have joined. Young by others, Mr. Vittal standards, not young in that sense. But the point I'm making is, we have been lucky to get continuously good people in the, and there is a trust. You see, this is not one-way dimension. They trust us that we have come with no agenda. They know NASSCOM is competing companies are working to work together to make things happen. So there is this trust element which is there, and I hope it continues for a long time. So I'm saying there is this chemistry of large number of groups, professional groups, with a trust as a bedrock. And that continues 35 years ago or 1988 and even today, as far as NASSCOM goes, and that relationship we have with the bureaucracy. So I think that is the key to make things happen.
So I'll give you a very quick sort of a snapshot of what we have talked about. We were talking about the $5 trillion economy, and we were talking about the role of next-gen technologies. And Ashank's point was that perhaps 20% of that will come out of exports, but 80% of that has to come from India. And CP said that we need to have a India stack, and aside from that, we also need the right devices, we need communication networks on top of that, we need solutions on top of that, and more importantly, we also require skill sets to be developed to ensure that there are, let's say, security professionals was an example that you took. And then we were talking about, this interaction between the industry and the government. So CP, my question to you is, Ashank said that NASSCOM, now this was software export, one voice for software export. Now, today when you start talking about deep tech, you're talking of number of different technologies as we were earlier talking about. You have crypto, you have or blockchain, and you have AI, ML. How do you get that unified voice of the industry on different technological issues?
I don't think the challenge is unified voice from the industry. I think the challenge is somewhere for us to become a little better. And trust me, when I am saying little better, I'm not trying to say that we have not done well. The reality is that we have continued to do well. Our graph shows that we are constantly improving, whether it is on ease of doing business or its number of unicorns, or in terms of connected devices, the number of internet users. I mean, every graph shows that there is a continuous improvement. Now it's a question is that if we are going to leapfrog, what do we need to do? So for example, when Mr. Sawhney was the MeiTY secretary, now great policy initiative that we will have semiconductor industry. I think what we also had to take into view is that the world over, the lack of design engineering capabilities for the semiconductors. And everybody that is today coming in is talking about producing the chips, which is almost like cloning one part of the chip, because if we are consumers of 50 million handsets, so we will probably produce that chip. My worry is that getting a Foxconn to set up a plant in Chennai or in Karnataka is not enough. The question is that it is the same way when the solar policy was announced. Why were we dependent on solar panels on China? I mean, did we take into account Make in India is equal to doing the full ecosystem? I mean, producing solar panels cannot be a competitive advantage of only China. It doesn't have any technological edge other than a commitment that we will make it happen. So I think where we need a better dialogue is more of trying to understand that today it is not one thing like a semiconductor plant. It is the whole food chain. It's the use cases. Who will do what? How will we produce? How will we consume that chip? So if we start having that dialogue right from academia to the end use cases, I think we will become better implementers and we can actually leapfrog. Same example in a different breath. 2015-16 visited China, would remember we pride ourselves on India Stack and UPI. You could actually live in China on WeChat and pay whatever to Apple or a $50 Apple or anything that you wanted, including that famous copycat market. You could live without having a currency in 2015-16. Yes, we have progressed. Yes, COVID has taught us that every hawker will now take a payment on a Google Pay or whatever. But I think we have to realize that we, as a nation, if we want to leapfrog, we will have to do a lot more than what we are doing today.
Mr. Sawhney, your reaction to the points which have been raised by both Ashank and CP.
I think first of all, on the question of a $5 trillion economy, we from MeiTY we used to look at two aspects of it. One is the manufacturing side, because manufacturing itself will be about 20% to about $1 trillion out of the 5 trillion. And electronic manufacturing has to necessarily be a significant, has to play a significant role there. And then digital economy. So we had brought out a report again released in February 2019 on $1 trillion digital economy.
And that again is, that is comprised of everything digital. So it is the growth of the IT sector, growth of electronic manufacturing, growth of UPI and digital payment systems, and increasing use of ICT in digital technologies in every domain, in the conventional domains. So all of that put together takes us to, or has the ability to take us to $1 trillion. So we have made significant progress, and to my mind 2020s is India's time to really rise and shine. So it's our day in the show what we are capable of. And while I agree with Gurnani ji that China had payment systems in place with WeChat as far back as in 2015-16. In fact, in our digital economy report, we have referred to many of these, and to the Alibaba, created merchants category, created credit for them, and then they grew very rapidly. Zimo Financial Systems was the name. So we've looked at all those examples. What is slightly different about India, and it's a very important and significant difference. In China, a number of companies have been exceptionally successful. And when you are successful in the ICT domain, especially in internet-related businesses, it automatically takes you to a position of dominance. So the number one entity enjoys 75-80% of the market. The next one barely has 10 to 15%, and then there is a long tail in which it's difficult to recognize who's there. And that's almost natural for it's the winner take all situation. What India has attempted, I think we have succeeded to some extent. Again, it's not clear whether we will finally succeed in this or not, is to create national public digital systems as the base. And the national public digital systems are characterized by keeping entry barriers low. Not right in the beginning, but for all time to come. So it is designed to promote competition. It is designed to invite new players into the same business. It is designed to give them a chance to succeed when some large players are already in the game. So that is different about UPI. In China, about 96-97% of all the payment transactions happen either on the WeChat empire, or it's an empire. You can live your life on WeChat, or it is on the Alibaba, that empire. The entire, again, it's a huge thing. So, whereas in India, what we have created is brought all of Indian banking system together, created a lightweight layer of unified payments interface. Its APIs coming in from banking and APIs becoming available to payment service providers. And it is such a powerful concept that Google, when they looked at getting into payments, decided to do it on UPI rather than anywhere. Who can be better than Google in sort of creating software systems? They created email, they created search, they created the Android ecosystem. They created maps. So whatever Google wants to do, they can do and write the rules for that. Instead, they preferred to look at UPI as the base and created their payment system on top of UPI. And today it has paid off because Google Pay is one of the strong players in that. But it's not the only player in that. It is not the WeChat of digital payments in India. We also have PhonePe, we have Paytm,
Yeah.
we have Bheem, we have Bharat Pay, and anyone else who wants to come in today is also free to come in, is welcome to come in, and the entry barriers are low. So the next person who wants to disrupt the game and challenge Google at its own game or PhonePe at its own game is welcome and is facilitated by the policy and by the ecosystem. Now, see what kind of giants this was able to create. This is a way of unlocking exponentials. We know that to reach $1 trillion, we have to unlock the phenomena of exponential growth. What happens when payments is just one small part of our life. What happens when the same huge nationwide base becomes available in healthcare, in education, in agriculture, in the entire primary sector around agriculture, in law and justice, where lots of pain points are there. Now the interesting thing is that for innovation to succeed, for new businesses to succeed, the thing that you need most of all is unsolved problems, pain points. India has plenty of pain points. If you want dental treatment, you know that it's not just when you sit in the dentist's chair that the pain points arise. Discovering which is the best dentist, being able to connect to that dentist, discovering the best cardiologist, discovering the best available facility for blood banks. All of that is a pain, if not for us in the big cities, at least for a large number of people across the country. Huge number of pain points and a nationwide public digital platform in healthcare. And you have set the stage for massive, massive innovation. So the companies that grow on that, I envy the opportunity
Absolutely.
that they are getting. And that, I think, is what will actually take us very significantly towards the $1 trillion economy. And it will take us there with strong, homegrown companies which have the ability to go and challenge anyone, anywhere in the world. I think that is the stage that we have tried to set, and this time it's not just limited to what we can do in software and in software products. This time it can be devices, it can be complete ecosystems, complete systems that we have the ability today to go and challenge anyone in any domain.
So we had in the morning Dr. R.S. Sharma, and he echoed the very sentiments that you are expressing now, which is that UHI is going to be the next big thing around which huge opportunities will get created and so on. But I have, you referred to agriculture, and that's a significant portion of our economy, and therefore if $5 trillion has to happen, things have to happen in that particular field. And for at least the last 20 years, we keep on hearing about that, there are these things which will happen, which will change the agri scene and so on. But so far it has not really impacted. How do you see and where do you see are going to be the winners in this particular sector?
Agriculture again is, in fact, healthcare is easier to deal with. Education is much easier to deal with because at the center and in the state governments there is a clear sort of ministry or department which is taking care of those particular sectors. In case of agriculture, it is the Ministry of Agriculture. It is land records, which is in rural development. It is crop loans, which is from banking sector. It is crop insurance, which is from the insurance providers. It is meteorological entities. It is the irrigation related, which is a plethora of entities which are dealing with availability of water and irrigation. Electricity, because electricity is what basically gives them the ability to irrigate. So all of these have to come together to make something good happen in agriculture, and that's just the primary part of the crops, and then the animal husbandry and the allied sector. So these are all silos. These are chemicals and fertilizers, the fertilizers, pesticides. So it is a number of entities which are engaged, which have to provide the services, and all of them have to play like an orchestra for the farmer to actually be able to deliver things well. So it is not sufficient for the farmer to have, establish his identity with the agriculture department. The same identity must work for seeds, for pesticides, for fertilizers, for agricultural marketing, etc. So the way we are attempting to do is not by bringing in a completely thought through design as a centrally designed thing. We are creating the stadium in which all of these players can play together and discover what each one is able to provide and discover what others require. And together then that orchestra starts happening. So this agriculture will be a little tougher for us than healthcare and education, but I think agriculture is also well on its way, and agriculture potentially might be the most rewarding of all.
Yeah, so, indeed it would be. Ashank, you have worked, in Jharkhand with the Reach for India program. So what are your experiences in this field? A short reply from you, please. Because then we'll move on to I have just one last question for you after that, and then we will just move on to the others.
Jharkhand experiment, as I call it, which happened through, as you know, Pan IIT, Reach for India, was an eye-opener for me, having grown only in cities in a way, to see how much a difference you can make to a large group of families by making them skillful and releasing the energy that they inherently had but had no way to make it themselves because there was nobody there to train them. So this is again a story of IT in a way, that in IT we release that energy of millions of 5 million people, as you know, are in IT today. This is of course a different energy. That is a different energy, but the form is same. Train people because we have a talent of a kind which we are underestimating ourselves. Honestly, we are underestimating ourselves all the time. So what we did in Parfi, we went there, Jharkhand government was very supportive. They said, you take over our skill building engine yourself. They gave us in all the district places. They said, we will give you land, we will give you building, you train, you know how to train people, you know how to manage it, you know how to use IT to make it happen. Put all of this together and let's train thousands and thousands of people. So we went ahead and made welders who went to Dubai in a construction company and sending 10,000 every month and so on. So I think this is, and nursing. Today we are one of the largest nursing provider in A&M, by the way. A&M is obviously, sorry, I forget the long form, but we are the largest provider, 600. Now we are doing ITIs, so on and so forth. The point I'm making is the larger point to your question is, the talent exists, and I saw it staying in all the districts, and very deep districts of Bihar. I have personally experienced it. I think we need to leverage it.
And I wish that, some of the high tech that we are talking about, VR Air for training and all of that should start happening in a much bigger way, on a much bigger scale. My last question, which is to you, CP, is that, we are also talking about SDG, ESG and so on, that you need to have. Do you think it is an impediment, or it is that it is something which will, the SDG goals and having proper ESG will actually be a fillip to organizations? I mean, let's say environment, for example, it's an opportunity, or do you think it's a deterrent in our journey towards this 5 trillion?
So again, 5 trillion and ESG have to go together. I don't think that we as a nation can afford not to become, or we as a community, or we as a company, or we as individuals not practicing sustainability. I don't think that's an option. So question is, how do you marry sustainability goals and your ambition? Clearly, I think it only benefits. That the benefit is, dependence on fossil fuels, if it can be reduced, and if we can start channelizing nature, whether it is the wind power, solar power, hydrogen, or electric vehicles, I mean, it is only benefiting all of us. And each one of them is by itself a business opportunity. So my personal belief is that India as a nation has to continuously realize its own powers, and our power continues to remain the 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.35 billion people. We as a consumers and a growth, whether it is 7.5% or 8.5%, as a growth economy, how do we continue to set standards, and how do we make Google or whichever example that you want to take as we start becoming more of India stack and as India examples.
Wonderful. So with that, a round of applause for our speakers today.